Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Well, happy Easter to those celebrating. Unfortunately, we had to spend a part of our Easter in hospital. I've always been pretty open and transparent about everything on this channel, and Mum was a little bit unwell, took a turn for the worst and required a little bit of surgery, so hopefully she's in speedy recovery. Mum and Bub are asleep, and I'd rather be bringing you guys the news, which I'd already prepared, than sitting on the couch and twiddling my thumbs. So another big week for crypto. We see a few of our favorite altcoins up big on the week. Binance Coin, basic attention token. You guys know this is one that I own and have done plenty of fundamental analysis on. A bit of housekeeping. I did a fantastic chat with Ivan on text. He's one of the biggest channels in crypto, and he invited me on. We spoke about so many interesting topics. That is a long one, so make sure you set some time aside to check that one out. And on this day in crypto history is a bit shorter this week because I did spend that day in hospital. But happy 5th birthday to Monero. And we're going to talk about privacy a lot in this episode as well. I've got my Loki shirt on. They're the Aussie guys that have done a fork of Monero, and they want to build a whole ecosystem, not just a privacy coin. And I think that's going to be very relevant to Australians pretty soon. So that brings us to our first story. And this is from the Northern Territory News. And I did read a while ago that Sydney was planning on implementing some sort of trial of the same social credit system as China. And people laughed at me and said, there's no way that would happen in Australia. And here we are in Darwin. They're also going to trial this technology, building virtual smart fences. So this is going to monitor, all your Wi-Fi, your speakers, your cameras, what side of the road you're walking on, and everything. And guys, I think this is just completely crazy, the level that this has got to. And it's all on that guise of terrorism. And if you look up the stats, I think there's been 13 people killed from terrorism in Australia in the past 100 years. That's like 0.01% of shark attacks or lightning strikes or anything else. But yet they're making this terrorism thing a national emergency and the excuse why we are all going to be surveilled. I then saw this on Facebook, the Australian Federal Police literally asking people if you're going to be downloading Game of Thrones illegally. So asking people to dob themselves in. It really is crazy what is happening out there. And if you haven't subscribed to The Juice already, they do some fantastic videos about all this stuff, and they really do take the piss out of our politicians who make it too easy to do so. So World VPN Week, and I think more and more of you are going to want to start using a VPN. I certainly use one on all my devices. You want to scramble your traffic and not be easy to monitor. On the same line of thought, I watched a video this week. This was on Virge Science, another great channel that I tend to watch at the end of the day and unwind with a few others, but unlocking the hidden secret in your voice. So they can now discover your mood, if you've got any illnesses, all from the subtle changes in your pitch and your tone and how you speak. So this is how crazy and how advanced the monitoring techniques have got, and trust me, this is all going into a central database somewhere, and it's there forever. Now, into the Australian economy. This was a good article talking about the level of inequality in Australia. So the top 1% holds as much wealth as the bottom 70% of all households. I think a lot of people don't feel that Australia has that much inequality compared to other countries, but these stats certainly suggest so. The big news of the week was unemployment in Australia. Now, this is what the central bank have been holding their hat on. It's the same in a lot of countries, talking about unemployment being at record low, so there's nothing to worry about, but we saw a big uptick. And I don't think that this is a little bounce like the others. I think we have now seen the bottom, and unemployment is going to trend up. And when we look at the stats, again, it's these government jobs, service sector jobs, which tend to be increasing when we've got, architects, high-paid jobs, real estate and property, construction. These are all falling off a cliff. Manufacturing, that is the sort of jobs we want, and they are all collapsing around 20% there. I think the Australian economy is in for trouble. You've seen our documentary. So over to Japan, where they are now a top 10 shareholder in 50% of all Japanese companies. And Japan went through this before we did. I've got a fantastic chat with Steve King coming out about turning Japanese. The US, Europe, all these countries are going down the same path. They're going to print too much money. They're going to start doing crazy things like buying stocks and anything else. Bonds and holding interest rates down hasn't been enough, and the central banks are about to go completely crazy. We already see it in China. I've reported to you multiple weeks about the amount of stimulus that they're throwing into the system. Next thing to try, let's subsidize cars and appliances reliances, guys, they are really getting out the money hose, and I think that is coming to Australia as well in a big way. In the US, same thing again. The US credit score hits an all-time high. So even though the majority of citizens are buried in debt, it's never been easier to get credit. So this just shows you that the system has become disjointed, and we don't want people being able to get themselves into more and more debt. This isn't a good thing with credit hitting record highs. We saw what it led to in the Australian housing bubble, and here we are in the US with housing starts collapse to their worst start since 2011. So let's keep an eye again if the US market has overextended itself, if their housing market's going to roll over as well. To the US stock market, foreigners dump a record $205 billion in US stocks in the past year, and a lot of that money has been moving into junk bonds and super risky assets that search for yield because interest rates have gone down again. The Fed were promising interest rates. A lot of money moved out of that riskier stuff, and now interest rates have gone lower again. People have to park all this money. There's way too much money that's being printed. They've got to park it somewhere, and they've got to search for yield. Now, on the global stage, world trade suffers the biggest collapse since the financial crisis. And this should scare you, again, if you're in Australia or a country that's really reliant on its exports. If China slows down, I think they reported 6.5% growth. I don't know who really believes those numbers anymore, but the whole world is slowing down. And it doesn't have to be a big crash, a doomsday apocalypse. I'm going to talk to John Adams this week, who thinks we are heading to an apocalypse. I think it's just going to be a slow grind, and they're going to print too much money. They're going to try everything they can, and we're going to end up like Japan, going sideways for 20 or 30 years unless we have some sort of debt jubilee. Now, luxury cars are getting hacked, and we speak about the Internet of Things a lot. We've covered IOTA and plenty of related projects on the channels, and this is the importance of having an unhackable database, because we've already seen instances of smart cars being hacked, crashing people into walls to kill them, and we need that secure database, because otherwise this just gives hackers another thing to get into, to commit crimes, as this story says here. One of the big news stories of the week was obviously Notre Dame burning down. That's devastating. We hate to see that, guys, anywhere with plenty of history. Let's keep an eye if anything else comes out of this story, but that was very sad on the world news stage. And finally, 2/3 of all American CFOs, these are the guys that handle the finances. They should be in the know. 2/3 are now predicting a recession by the summer of 2020. We know that yield curve had inverted. That tends to predict a recession if they're going to have one 12 months in advance. So now a lot of CEOs are saying this as well. Stock markets have rebounded so sharply, back up near the record highs. Is this as good as it gets, guys, with all this global growth slowing and consumers in debt? Again, let's see what the Fed does and how crazy monetary policy gets, because they're not going to let the markets just collapse without a fight. Now, I think a lot of my followers are maybe a little bit biased. 92% of you and 96% in our premium group saying that you believe there will be a financial crisis in the next 10 years. Again, this all depends on how crazy central banks want to get. Into the crypto news now, and this is something you have to be aware of. So I cover a lot of the altcoin news, and a lot of the time the news does push around these altcoins that don't have a lot of trading volume. But Waves, which is a pretty well-known, reasonably high-cap coin, crashes to 1 Satoshi. And this isn't on some fringe exchange. This is on Binance. So a massive sell order. Some people got filled down here, guys. And if you want to have these buy orders just sitting low on a few of your coins, you do get lucky every so often. So someone obviously returned incredible gains, whoever got filled right down there. I think it was something like 250,000%. A little bit of luck. This does happen from time to time, but if you're trading, stop losses being triggered is something that unfortunately you have to deal with in crypto. So good news for IOTA, partnering with company Everything. Now, supply chain, we've covered that a number of times. I'm not going to go into the story too much, but IOTA is one that hasn't really been performing as well price-wise as a lot of other coins at a time when I think they've had a lot of great news. So this is one that, I want to go on the record and say I think this is going to run really hard and play catch up to a lot of the other coins that have done really well. And Cardano is one of those. So I think when we made our fundamental analysis, Cardano was trading at 4 or 5 cents. And I said, guys, there's so much good stuff happening in the coming weeks and months. I think that's probably the bottom, or at least I'm buying. And Cardano's had a huge run since then, up over 100%. That Shelley update and the 2020 roadmap. And this is something that people really get upset with me when I say, guys, these are great projects, but you have to be patient. Ethereum and a lot of these others do have a big head start, in terms of a couple of years behind, ahead of these other projects. Now, back in January, this has been one of our best trade calls, and I'll keep harping on about it, but Binance Coin, we laid out for you, we did a video on YouTube, all the fundamentals, and Binance have been absolutely killing it lately. So they revealed the timeline for the move over where the Binance Coin, like a lot of other mainnet swaps, you're going to have to upgrade that token to the own Binance chain. Now, Binance are probably going to do that for you. I'll cover that in a video once we have more details. But Binance of making, $80 million is, I'm not sure if it's record profits, but for this bear market compared to other exchanges, Binance is just absolutely killing it. I did want to mention that Synthetics, one of the better projects out of Edcon, rebranded from Haven, they'll be releasing synthetic BNB, some inverse products, and just giving you another way to trade BNB coin, because a lot of the time it is only on Binance that people can get exposure. So keep an eye on Synths. I'll get them on the channel again and do tutorials about that. But back to Binance here, everything's been going so well for them. CZ has become such an influential player. And, him saying this week, enough's enough, we're going to delist Bitcoin Satoshi Vision. And then others followed, Kraken, Shapeshift and whatnot. So he really has become a powerful figure. A lot of people saying to me, is Binance Chain going to kill Ethereum? I'll talk about that in just a second. But in terms of Bitcoin Satoshi Vision, this is something you do not want to see on your proof of work blockchain. This is from BitMEX research, and recently they picked up that Bitcoin Satoshi Vision had 2 chain reorganizations in the space of an hour or two. So here we see the block number, and we jump back and say, no, this isn't the right, due to the longest chain rule, this isn't the right chain. We're going back to here. And then we had 6 more blocks mined, number 645 here, and then it says, that's not right. We're going back to here, and this becomes the longest chain again. So that's not something you want to see. Exchanges will increase the number of confirmations that you need because they just have that little bit of uncertainty. And we've seen another 51% a little bit before the video was recorded here. So I'll probably end up talking about that during the week. But I think 51% attacks, as I said in my year in review and look ahead, are going to be a big theme of 2019. So Ethereum killers, and guys, this isn't meant to insult any other project. I missed off so many, VeChain, Walton Chain, Komodo. There's so many good projects out there. And as I said, competition is exciting. I love these projects. I own a lot of them. And this is all necessary to push the space forward. But so far, Ethereum has such a big head start. I think you'd have to agree they've got at least tenfold more projects, dApps, and developers, ecosystem, market cap than a lot of these other projects out there. So again, Ethereum is likely going to lose market share, just as Bitcoin lost market share when it had the 100% being the first cryptocurrency. That's not a bad thing. We welcome that competition. So Coinbase expanding into India. We know that Binance have put the foot down trying to expand into as many countries as possible. Launching crypto-to-crypto trading. Obviously, that's more friendly for KML and anti-money laundering in different countries and different regulations there. Great to see that rolling out. Binance and Coinbase, I still think that Coinbase is a lot bigger and important company to the space than people recognize, with everyone obsessed with Binance. This is a smaller article that just came out today. Serena Williams putting Bitcoin, and she's actually an investor in Coinbase. So putting that back in the mainstream, one of the things that I think we're going to see in the next bull market is not Paris Hilton promoting ICOs like we saw in the last bull run. Actual celebrities and open-minded people, trusted influencers coming out and saying, hey, I'm in crypto, and that is going to drive a huge wave of retail FOMO and hopefully adoption as well. Now, to the higher end of town, LedgerX revealing a bid to beat BAT to the physical futures. So obviously everyone's excited about BAT having an actual physical Bitcoin product rather than cash-settled futures, which we don't want. We don't want those cash-settled products. We don't want rehypothecation. We don't want crypto to end up like gold and silver with 100-to-1 claims and all this fake volume and trading. So if LedgerX get a product to market, as long as it's backed by real Bitcoin, so that's great. A bit of competition with BAT who can get to the market first. One of the things I've been concentrating on in our learning section in my private Facebook group is options. I think it's so important to understand what they are and why they're important. And options trading is coming to the world of cryptocurrency. This is another way to hedge your portfolio and make money very safely. The volumes are starting to pick up. I might do a tutorial for everyone soon on the best options exchanges in crypto. Now, eToro is another household name in the world of stocks trading and options. And they launched a full crypto exchange this week. Plenty of stable coins on there. The mature investors love the fact that stable coins don't have that volatility and a bit of a safe haven compared to a lot of us that have had to sit through some pretty volatile markets. But again, it's just the big boys getting into this space. And the question that we ask ourselves is, are we going to go down that line with everyone holding in these hedge funds and investment funds, eToros of the world, or are we going to have more friendly wallet technology where people hold their own keys? So Zengo, small company, raising $4 million to bring keyless crypto wallets, so using things like retina scans, fingerprints, geo-tracking, so all these new tools to make our private keys safer. Let me know what you guys think below. Are we going to go down that road with everyone holding their own crypto, or are we going down the road of custody and insurance and everyone having their crypto stored centrally? Microsoft and Ethereum group launched token building kit for enterprises. So the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance and Microsoft have been working together for a number of years now. I just absolutely love reading these stories. It's funny to me when people say crypto's dead, Ethereum's dead, when we have household names like Microsoft continuing to work. And then we have confirmation with a company like Ernst & Young saying that we're going to use private Ethereum and the Quorum forks, but also the public Ethereum chain and implementing ZK Snarks. So we need privacy for a lot of these businesses to be able to operate in the public Ethereum chain. But the fact that they're saying that we will be building on the public Ethereum chain is absolutely fantastic news. And then it doesn't get any bigger than the IMF and the World Bank launching their own token. A bit of an educational thing here, but we know that the G20, the IMF, the World Bank, everyone is studying cryptocurrency. And just as Microsoft and Ernst & Young are doing, I think we're going to see people realize, just as they did with the internet, that the public utility of these open source projects and collaboration is the most important thing. And we're going to see them build on public chains rather than private chains if they want all the benefits of cryptocurrency. Same goes here in China, with Chinese experts coming out and saying that the renminbi is going to launch their own cryptocurrency. So we've heard the Australian government play around with the idea of launching their own stable coin. We've got the petro and all this sort of thing. So whether or not the renminbi is going to go fully digital with their own crypto, I'm not sure. But look, I think China is going to open the floodgates to blockchain technology in some way in the next sort of 12 to 24 months after taking that pretty serious stance against exchanges, ICOs, and crypto. Final story here before we get into some bigger news I want to touch on was Ethereum core researchers talking about quantum resistance. So this is something that we get asked a lot. I actually have done a video about quantum resistance and how it affects blockchains and the security of proof of work. I'm not going to dive into it too much today, but good news that on top of everything else that's happening for the Ethereum 2.0 launch, that quantum resistance is something that they want to build into that. Sorry, I didn't realize I've got this story as well about Japanese company Rakuten beginning registration. So at the start, I spoke about how Japan have gone crazy with their money printing and negative interest rates and so on. But I think this is another country, as we've seen with Venezuela and the volumes on local Bitcoins, where people are going to go absolutely crazy for this. When a company the size of Rakuten, this is like an Amazon of Japan, begins registrations ahead of launching their own crypto exchange in June. So much good stuff on the horizon, guys. This is a story that I wanted to touch on. So Ripple's had some good news lately, and I actually like it how they've gone in a few different directions into the gaming space and whatnot. But something that's hotly debated is the overhang, with Ripple Labs owning 50 billion coins and 61% of the total supply still being outstanding. And if that comes into circulation, how do you feel as a Ripple holder? Are you worried about that diluting your holdings? Because in the past couple of quarters, we've seen 1 billion Ripple added, increasing the circulating supply. And Ripple Labs have come out and said that There's partnerships and whatnot, but this is also being used to pay wages and pay bills and so on. So guys, let me know in the comments below what you think about that overhang with the supply of Ripple. Is it going to dilute your holdings? And it's funny that I was talking to our members about this, that I actually thought Ripple would have been a stronger performer recently when a lot of the other coins had some pretty big legs up. I felt something wasn't right. It didn't really make sense to me. I was talking about the longs and the shorts and saying that I think there's a short trade setting up here. So Ripple was trading for 36.5 cents. And we're now down around 10% or so. So this was a good trade. Well done to those that took it. It was actually got up to 15% at one point. But I think maybe this drop off, since we did that video, was something to do with this 1 billion XRP entering circulation. So I still think Ripple is going to have its time, and all these coins are going to pump if we get some sort of FOMO. The high cap coins are going to have plenty of money flood into them. But let me know you guys' thoughts on Ripple below. In terms of Bitcoin, it continues to hold up. So everyone is just expecting this leg down, but it's just not coming. In our cycle brackets, as we said, this push up continues until later in April, and it's that 26th that we're eyeing this pullback. So I'd love to see us have one more attempt higher in the next day or two. And if we can't clear those new highs, we want a healthy correction, holding up on one of these fibs. If we zoom in here, we can see our moving average is acting as support. And if we lose that, we spoke about last week, obviously that 200-day moving average would be really big support. Ethereum, a lot of people setting themselves for an even more bullish trade. So Ethereum's holding up above its moving averages. This is just a beautiful bull flag that we see here on the daily chart. Not a lot of sellers coming in. Let's see if we can get another push up. And I'd love Ethereum to, at least test $200, where we spent a fair bit of time here before that big plunge as well. I'm going to wrap it up there, guys. If you do want to join our premium group, head over to nuggetsnews.com.au to become one of the family. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, share these videos around, and thanks for tuning in, guys. Cheers.